Live. Hold up. Let me go see if everything is Yep, here we are. Awesome. All right. I got it all in place. Welcome in, everyone. This is our Trans Awareness Week panel that we're going to be having right now. We are with Riot Games in partnership with It Gets Better. My name is Beginning. I am one of the It Gets Better ambassadors, and I will be here to facilitate the conversation today and join in. For those who don't know, Riot Games and It Gets Better have actually worked together in the past, and they've contributed over 125,000 to support the It Gets Better project and help with LGBTQIA youth. And this is one of our lovely interactions that we're going to be having here, which is really exciting. And we have a couple of panelists here that I'll let introduce themselves, starting with the person over to my camera's right, which is going to be Elliot.
Hi, my name is Elliot. I use they them pronouns. I am 14 years old, and I am a youth voice at the It Gets Better project. And this is Ollie.
We were definitely starting off with a bunch of dogs in the conversation there, which was definitely, it set the tone of relaxation, which is what, sometimes we needed here. And then, M, why don't you introduce yourself as one of the writers?
Hi, my name's M. It's just a letter. It's pretty simple. If you know the alphabet, you know my name. You can spell it. It's pretty great like that. My pronouns are they, them, he, him. I work at Riot Games in player support.
Awesome. And then, last but certainly not least, Valerie.
Hi, I'm Valerie. My pronouns are she, her. I work on Riot's creative operations team, so we provide a variety of services to creatives across all of our products. So, like artists, audio, writing and editing, video, creative direction. It's like 700 people across all of Riot. So I focus on our internal events initiative for that group.
Awesome. This is super cool for me as somebody who, I'm a content creator and working in the space. And for me to be able to interact with a company like Riot, who I've obviously known about for years, and then to be able to have this conversation with us, and in celebration for Trans Awareness Week, it's just, I find it very like heartwarming, and for me to be able to have this sort of interaction and have this time for us to have a space and during this week. And obviously, Elliot, despite your being 14, I would not have even thought that, youth voice, what, so on. I feel like you already have yourself with such composure and such like respect to yourself that it just shows the level of like comfort you have around many of us here, and it's really exciting to have us all together for this conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah. So to give a little preface for anybody who's watching right now, we are going to just kind of talk about our maybe ourselves, a little bit of us figuring out ourselves as a part of Trans Awareness Week. I know that I personally only came out within the last 5 years. I say only, that's still relative, but at the same time, there's a lot of people that are still learning, and part of why I personally stream is to help provide that comfort and to be able to use something like It Gets Better to help provide more comfort. I think is really exciting. So I guess I want to start off with asking the general conversation here. What exactly would Trans Awareness Week mean for you? And like, what is the date of importance? Because I think, if I remember correctly, Sunday is also Trans Day of Remembrance, which is another big one that we have leading into that. So feel free, anybody, to chime in on that.
What this week and then the importance means to me.
Yes,
I think
exactly.
it's something. I think it's something for everyone to consider. I don't think it's just for like a particular type of people. Gender identity can be a very fluid thing. So you may feel comfortable today, you may be having questions later, or you may in the future, and it's okay. So like having an awareness week for folks to consider being comfortable with yourself, I think is honestly an act of kindness to humanity. It's take a moment, feel comfortable in your skin.
I really like that. It's. I think that it's regardless. I know this is Trans Awareness Week, but I think we could all kind of relate, regardless of who we are and how we feel about like trying to feel comfortable in our own skin. There's always parts that are frustrating. This dysphoria is a common thing that I personally deal with. I'm sure others deal with, and it's you know, that key of just being able to be comfortable with yourself and be able to, you know, spread that awareness and help others, I think is like, you know, just like you're saying.
I think it means a lot to me too. Like I have taken part in activations like these, like this type of thing. I think I hosted and organized the It Gets Better stream that we did last year, right? So like I've been able to be a part of this stuff for the last few
That's
years
exciting.
on the other side of this, which has been cool. But like I've gotten to interact with a bunch of just really incredible trans people who are like successful and making their way in the world, and they're like people I look up to and find inspiring just from like all kinds of different industries. It's just like this adage has been said a lot, but like sometimes you have to see a role model, like someone who looks like you, in order to believe that you can actually do something. So like those don't really hit until you really experience them yourself. And I feel like getting to interact with these amazing people within the trans community just has been a really big boon to me. So that's like the value I see of this week. There's also like of course the like historical cultural importance of Day of Remembrance, like honoring the lives of people who have lost their lives to anti-trans violence, just because uh, interestingly, like I think people are more aware of us than ever, but that creates a lot of like backlash too.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of the goal of awareness now is not just like we're here, but also like we are just kind of normal, regular people who want to live our lives and be happy. And like getting that personal connection of like, we're here, we are cool people who like you're getting to see and like see on screen and be successful and be just people in the world, or like, and like we're okay. I don't know. It's there's a lot of value in that too.
Yeah, I think there were a couple things that you said there that like I resonated with. Part of like why I want to be this bigger creator in this space is, you know, even beyond the like just women in a male dominated field, just I want to be able to show again that like you can be successful, especially because like I like to compete in esport tournaments, like to commentate. These are very male dominated, very cis male dominated fields, and for me to be able to show others that you can do this and be that role model, like that's a big part of why I desire to continue to grow and aspire to like help out on all these other things there. So I think that you really like hit like a point there that I can resonate with.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with what all of you guys said. And I think that from like my perspective as a trans youth, like trans awareness is really important because yes, people are aware of us, but also certain aspects of it, like I think especially being non-binary and gender queer, like people get really confused by it. And then one of y'all said like it's important to see that we're just like normal people. I think that's really important. And also, when I was like trying to figure myself out, like I didn't know I had an option other than like being the gender I was assigned at birth, let alone being like non-binary, not having a gender. And I think that when I started seeing trans people like on TikTok, social media, like the internet who were like thriving and like making content and just like being happy, it just really helped. And so I think that it's like this awareness and like even this stream is just really important.
Yeah, I think it's wild when just like, especially for a platform like TikTok, for instance, I have seen so many more like for me specifically trans women and just like having their voice and being able to use that platform and just all of this like positive and like that in itself. For me, I've been creating content for 5 years and I see these people and I just sit there and I'm like, wow, like they make me want to put out more because that we have such of a face now. And while that obviously can be inspiring for folks like myself, we obviously deal with that little bit of backlash and everything like that. For me, I know that I struggle mightily with my voice. That's something that is a very strong dysphoric feeling for me. I had one TikTok go viral, and the reason it went viral was because I had thousands of people commenting about how annoying my laugh was and how toxic the comment section was toward me as a trans woman. And I remember just struggling to like deal with that, and like I was like, I know I'm at the face, I know that like it's the fact that it hit 2.23 million views, like astounding, crazy. But the fact that most of that came from like, just like negative, like I think that's the true like, summarization of what like being at the face of like, being trans or, being queer in general right now feels like, where you can have these highs, but it's also coming with all of this like backlash that we're suffering right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, speaking of oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Like the backlash we're suffering right now. I live in Austin, Texas, and as you guys probably know, Governor Abbott just got reelected. Love him. Not really.
Woo.
Um, and so right now there's a lot of anti-trans legislation like being passed, being talked about, being like created, and it's really like it's stressful for me. Like I think a bill just got passed a few days ago, saying that schools can make transgender people go to the bathroom that they were assigned at birth, and just other stupid laws like that. Um, I think that Trans Awareness Week is important to like bring awareness to that issue. Like, hey, like this is happening, and like people don't want to talk about it, or they want to talk about it like negatively. And I just think that's important to bring up.
Yeah, I think that's a very like, a key thing there, where like there's either there's either like a group of people that like don't want to talk about it. There's the people that, we do have people that do want to talk about, but there's also the people that also are using it as like performative activism, which I think is like another key thing that I notice a lot. And I think it's important to really just listen to our voices as well when we like tell people like, hey, while I think you're having, like good intentions, it's coming across in like almost like this way that could almost be like more harmful in the future, or they're using it for the wrong reasons. And I think that, this week is such an important thing to just like be like, hey, I don't want to say sit here, listen to what I have to say because I know better, but like, that's part of what like this week is supposed to be about. It's supposed to be like, hey, be aware of what we have to say, how we feel. And I think that, there's a lot of voice to be heard. It's just a matter of people going out to actually listen to that voice is the important thing right now.
I think that like performative activism comment hit so hard too, right? Like like he said before, Elliot, like I am a person who would not know they were trans if it weren't for like the internet. Like I also am a person who like discovered it in the last 5 years, and like it is fully because I see more like visibility out there from other trans people just existing and being like, yeah, this is my experience, and then I can be like, oh, that's mine too. I just had no idea that meant I was trans. So you like need those examples, but it also results in, okay, suddenly it seems like there's this explosion of trans people, and like that results in all this backlash and these people being like, oh, there's too many of them. And it's obviously that cycle is awful and very irritating. And it's irritating is not even like, it is such an understatement. It is horrible and deadly and shitty. Sorry, I'm not supposed to say that.
No, it's
But
fine.
regardless,
It's fine.
okay, thank you. I it's very frustrating ultimately, and like the most we can do as individuals is honestly to fight back by just like being ourselves and being very open about being ourselves, like being here. I don't know, is especially like living in Austin is an act of bravery in itself. Just I don't know, it's a big deal to be a person, who can say like, yeah, the laws that Texas is passing are not making me go away. And I don't know, that's the case for any states that are creating anti-trans laws at the moment. And it sucks that our trans youth are targeted at the moment as a
Yeah,
result.
and that's the scary thing right now, especially is that like there are, it's not just Texas, it's not just Florida. There's dozens and dozens of states that are trying to do it. The major government, not to get too political, but there's a lot of them that are obviously trying to, you know, repress and deny the trans youth their opportunities that, some of us wish we could have even had when we were younger, I'm sure.
Mhm. Absolutely. And Elliot, you hit the nail on the head when it came to the amount of representation on TikToks. Tell you what, like I stop and think back for myself and I go, wow, what would have happened back, back in the day, with this much going on? It would not, there would be it just didn't exist, and it wasn't a safer place. But to me, this is the face of progress and also the beauty of the next generation coming up. To me, that's progress. That's seeds that were sown by us, by our elders, and we're seeing progress. And that's what this is. And the legislation that's coming out, that while it is painful, the reason it's coming to light is because we now have representation. We have a seat at the table. And people are reticent to change. It's like, hey, this is a box. I don't know how to treat you. And it confuses some folks. And I think that's why we're encountering what we are. But I do think that ideology is in the throes of death. So we are going to be moving into a more progressive state where people can feel comfortable with themselves and not have to feel a threat to other people's existence by just being themselves.
Yeah, I feel like I definitely agree with the sentiment of that. I think we're in the progressive, you know. I feel as though we have a lot of, you know, good direction to have. There's a lot of people trying to deny that direction, and I know that it obviously puts that negative there, but I feel like especially you know, with someone like Elliot, who, you know, you're, again, not, I don't want to keep bringing up your age, but you are the youth. You are like that next generation that's coming up right now, and I think a lot of you are a lot more, you know, I guess more progressively minded to be more accepting and be more like willing, because, you know, and this is something I was actually going to ask you all after, but I'll talk about it for now. Like, the first time I could have maybe figured something out was when I was 13. Now I'm 26 right now. So imagine what life could have been like 13 years ago. Imagine what life was like for just trans people in general 13 years ago. Like, you know, it's one of those things where I look back and I think, oh, what, you know, what it's, I wish that I could have been, you know, I wish I could have come out when I was 13 and had that first like sentiment there. But at the same time, like, again, their times have changed for the better. You know, I think back to how when I was first coming out to like my parents, I had like some family that would be like, "Oh yeah, I guess, you know, I don't know if this is them just trying to like tell themselves that they understand, but they'd be like, oh, I could have figured out something was up, but I probably would have thought it was gay because trans just like wasn't as like well known and well thought about back then." And I don't take offense on something like that because, again, it's not something that was as well documented and well out into the public eye because, you know, again, this is something that we are now finally getting to like the forefront a lot more of queer related issues and being our voice. And, you know, you think back to, I am Val, I'm sure you both can think back to like middle school and high school where it wasn't the LGBTQIA plus, it was the like gay straight alliance, and then it was the LGB. Like, you know, it took a while for even to have the T in there, and it just shows just how much progress we've been able to have right now.
Yeah, I agree. I'm glad to see more letters added, to be honest. Like, and I'll say them all. Like, keep bringing them, keep bringing them
Yeah.
because you have a place. You have a place.
Exactly. You know, we're just trying to, just like everybody else, keep having that positive light and keep being at the forefront there. And yeah, it's just, you know, it's nice to see the growth. It's nice to see the change. Just albeit there's been obviously a lot of scrutiny these days, but I still think that we have a lot of positive direction and we just have to keep that momentum going. And, you know, for that I still try to have hope. And, you know, I did want to again ask about it because I briefly brought up one of you know, about like, you know, your first connecting with your gender or coming out and stuff like that. And I wanted to, you know, ask all of you about like your experiences there, because I think that a lot of people when they're first coming out try to see themselves in other people's stories as a way to like really try to figure themselves out. So if you're comfortable with it, I'd love to hear all of yours.
Yes, I would love to talk about it. I don't know why. I love talking about my like coming out so much because I think I'm one of the more privileged people that I figured it out pretty young and I like came into a more accepting community. But even still, I've had some like struggles that just come with being trans, and so I've like always known that I wasn't a girl, which is what I was assigned at birth. I cut my hair short in 5th grade. I used to steal my brother's clothes and wear them. And I would get really happy when people couldn't tell what my gender was, which should have just been a big red flag. But again, I didn't know there was other options for me. And then around like when COVID started, I downloaded TikTok, which was my first social media app I was allowed. It's got my new iPhone 6 or whatever I had. And I learned about the term non-binary, and it felt like my whole world had opened up when I heard, like, saw non-binary people and like learned about it. Because I didn't know I didn't have to fit into the boxes of gay or straight or girl or boy or anything like that. I could just be myself, which was non-binary and queer. And it felt really empowering to have a term to describe my gender identity, like describe how I was feeling, like not a girl, not a boy, like not a third gender, just non-binary. And so I came out when I was also when I was 12. And everyone kind of already knew that I wasn't straight, but the gender identity thing kind of came as a shock because most people were just guessing I was gonna have a tomboy phase and grow out of it, or at the very most, like be a trans dude. And I've been told that non-binary is like a stepping stone gender and like it's just a phase, like I'm either gonna be a boy or a girl, but no, no. And I came out to my friends who were really supportive, and I came out to my parents who are amazing now, but they were a little bit confused at first because non-binary was a new term for them. So but my mom actually bought a book about like raising your non-binary child or something like that,
Aw,
which is really
I love
sweet.
that.
Yeah, it was really sweet. And so we did have some struggles with the pronouns and the name change, but we got there. And now my parents come to trans rights protests with me, which is really awesome. I love them.
That's
Um,
amazing growth to hear.
yeah, no, and even my grandparents, like when I first came out, they sent me a letter from the church saying you cannot be transgender. But now they're giving it their best effort. I used to be really mad at them because they would misgender, dead name, and just disregard my identity completely because they're old people.
Hmm.
um, but and I took a step back and realized like, hey, they didn't disown me. I still have grandparents who love me, and they're trying their best. And so I've been trying to like rebuild my relationship with them. I think they're probably coming over for Thanksgiving in a few days, actually.
Oh,
Um, so it's important to note that like, people can change. I'm definitely one of the more fortunate people with an accepting environment, community, family. But that is not to say that everyone has been amazing. Just the other day, I was walking down the street from at my school, and a group of teenage boys speeds by in a truck, yelling at me, "Are you a boy or are you a girl?" And they like start laughing and they just like speed off. And I'm gonna be honest, it was scary, obviously, but it was because I thought they're gonna like hit me with their car.
hmm.
But it was also kind of funny because is that really the best insult you could come up with? Like it's like they couldn't tell what slur to call me, so they just like said that. Um, and I came out as queer and non-binary in 7th grade, which led to an ongoing battle with depression and dysphoria. Like I wasn't able to get a chest binder for a long time because my parents thought that it was dangerous, which not if you do it right. But it also led to me being an activist for my community and trying to make my school a safer place for other trans youth. And today was actually Rainbow Day at our school, which is one of the reasons why I'm wearing rainbow. And it was really cute to see all the little middle schoolers wearing their pride flags. I was
Oh,
like, yeah,
that's
yeah,
exciting though, especially because you probably feel like at this point, like, I know it's hard to give yourself that like ego boost, but you're probably sitting there like you're probably that face of that change. You're probably helping create a huge part of why there's so many people that are like that, and I think that just hearing all of that, you probably deserve a lot of credit for how your community is right now.
thank you. Yeah, I'd love to hear y'all's coming out stories. I feel like I talked a lot.
No, you're fine.
Very important. Like, yeah, no, not at all. Um, sure, I can go. Uh, I think it's worth saying too, like, that is very much like a thing that comes up when you talk about non-binary identity as well. This idea that it's like a stepping stone. I can say like I use she, her pronouns. I am fine with terms like girl, but like I would also very much say that like being non-binary is a core part of my identity, and I wouldn't feel as comfortable in my identity without that understanding of like the like spectrum of gender isn't even accurate, just like the the weird mess that gender is and gender identity is. Like that's it took me a long time to really be comfortable with that. I will say, yeah, like I said, I've only really figured all of this out in the last 5 years. So like 2017, when I had like just turned 23, was when it really hit me. And like I believed I was a gay man for a long time. I admittedly had some kind of like gender hangups, I guess. But you can like compartmentalize those and be like, oh, that's just whatever, it's a thing. It doesn't matter. It's not me. But like, yeah, it was nothing I had ever like sat down and really questioned, which is surprising in retrospect. But yeah, I just didn't have those examples. I think for most people, they don't necessarily have that like eureka moment where it's like, oh, like they just suddenly realize everything. But I did. It was literally like just me browsing Reddit, like browsing like the meme like shitpost trans subreddit, and then my egg just kind of like cracked all at once. And I remember like sitting there looking at it and getting really hot and sweaty and being like, wait, I relate way too hard to these. Oh my God. So yeah, I mean, it was like that, and then I sort of like repressed it for a bit, and then like a few months later it like came back up again, and I just it has been a very long journey of like talking myself through a lot of things that ultimately like my first realization ended up being true, right? Like it once you realize it, then you kind of have to come to terms with it, and I think the coming to terms with it was the really hard part for me. But I've been in a good place for a while now. So, it's hard. There's like, I think, like I said, so much societal pressure. There's just this immense pressure on this decision to, choose an identity and announce that to the world and make certain changes. And like, there's so much that goes into the self-discovery process that is difficult enough without being influenced by all of that. So, sometimes I think I took longer than most, but I don't even know if that's true. I think there's a lot of people who struggle with this stuff because it's hard. And yeah, I just, by finally getting to a place where I was like accepting it and loving it and now feel really good about being trans, like it just took a long time. But yeah.
I think that the one thing that I could hear and I'm thinking to myself was that like it's the convincing yourself or not like the allowing yourself to finally realize that it's like that was the hardest thing for me because when I came out in college I spent like the first month like fighting myself and just being like I almost like to an internalized transphobia that I had within myself where I was like, no, there's no way you're trans, no, stop, you're overthinking it. Like I would just be like, oh, and giving all these excuses. And then I remember like the key thing that hit me where I like finally was like able to like come to terms and feel like comfortable was just like I would not have spent the past month stressing about this every day if it wasn't something important to me. And once I said that, and once I, I allowed myself to, acknowledge that, I was able to start to take the next step. And I think that that was like a very like important thing to figure out.
One of the most helpful things I've seen online is people talking about how they'll be months or years into like transitioning and like being on hormones and stuff and like, living their lives as their actual gender. And then have these moments of panic where they're like, am I actually trans? And it's like, yes, of course you are. You're like so much happier and fulfilled and like feel like a real person. But you just have these moments because it kind of digs in at you. You're not, there's just not a wealth of positivity out there. And it gets really easy for it to soak into your brain and for you to like question yourself as a result. So it makes me feel better when people are like, yeah, I've been on hormones for years and I still have occasional moments where I'll be like, is this real? Am I, so. Not that hormones make you trans, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I get you. And then if you feel like you have anything you want to add to that.
Yeah, for my journey, as long as I can remember, I've always been male. I've always every birthday when you're blowing out those candles, what's the wish? I want to be a boy, because I kept being treated female. So I would be like, oh, I'm going to go do this. And my mom would be like, oh, girls don't do that. It was always, ladies don't do this, girls don't do that. And I was like, why would I want to be that? I want to go do this fun stuff. I want to go play with these toys. Like, what? This is dumb. It just didn't make sense to me, because I was like, those parts aren't required for this. Like, why is that even a thing to consider? And so I always thought that was weird, and always how the outside couldn't see who I was on the inside. But the first time I encountered a different box, there was this thing called Channel 1 that used to play in schools. It was kind of like news for kids. And I was in 6th grade, and they were doing some kind of protest or something, and they were talking about gay people. I go, oh, those are my people. And so then I went home and I talked to my mom, and I was like, hey mom, what's your opinion on gay people? And she gave me an opinion. It's not one that I agreed with, and honestly, it kind of like threw me further back into a closet. And just because of the now awareness that I had of like, oh, there's a stigma with this. Oh, I can't talk to people about it. And as time went on, I just was like, you know what? I'm becoming more and more confident and comfortable with who I am, and realizing that it's not really, it's not really a problem with me, but how people want to feel comfortable around me. And I kind of have my own space, and I want to be comfortable in my skin all the time, as opposed to the people who I encounter on occasion feel comfortable around me, but then I'm uncomfortable in my skin all the time. That felt wrong. And so I eventually was like, no, I'm going to choose me. And so then that's what I did. And so I was in my journey. I'm a boy. Okay, well, maybe I'm gay. And then I was like, okay, no, I'm still masculine. I'm still male. And I even tried on different pronouns and started going through being called just he, him. I remember I was thinking, always wanted this ever since I was little. Every birthday wish, everything. And it felt wrong to me. And it felt wrong because it just didn't fit just right. I felt a little bit of guilt letting go of what being raised female taught me and tempered me, and what I learned from that. And so I was like, I don't want to give it up, because then I feel like I'm not respecting that part of me that taught me so much. And so I was like, okay, then that's how I settled with the they, them. I'll still, he, him is still fine as well. But that's why I stuck with the they, them, because I felt like I wasn't honoring a very important part of myself.
I think that's really like, something that I'm sure there's a lot of non-binary folk can. I can't speak for myself, but I feel like that's something that is very near and dear to some people's hearts. I can already see it in the chat from actually one of my mods who is saying how they relate to something that everything you just said right there. And I think it takes a lot of like introspection in yourself. I think that's the word I'm trying to use there. But like just like self-reflection to be able to like figure all of this out. And we all have our deep internal monologues on the direction of where we're going and how we're feeling, and how there's something I don't know about any of you. I remember when I was coming out, I could look back to, I was like, all right, so you remember that one party that I was at when I was 10, and I'm sitting here like, yeah, there's a reason I wasn't comfortable here. Yeah, I go through all of those like memories in my head, and I'm like, okay, connect the dot, connect the dot, connect the dot.
Same. Slumber parties for me, all the girl slumber parties.
Yeah, I talk about how it's a very weird thing for me to think back on. I swam competitively in all 4 years of my high school. I wasn't out until college. So, very interesting dynamic to look back upon and be like, I wonder why I wasn't comfortable getting changed in front of everyone else.
Yeah,
You
it's
know
like,
what's
should I
funny
be
is
here?
I wonder
Yeah,
why
exactly.
I went to into the bathroom stalls for 2 years changing instead of being in front of everybody.
When I first cut my hair, I was so excited because I got to I thought I looked exactly like my brother. And then on the first day of school, I took his clothes, and then this is how we showed up to our first day of 5th grade. But, oh my god, it's the best quality.
Yeah, you
That's so
can't tell the
cute.
difference between you both. Like,
My hair was like pushed to the side, but whenever I had my little bowl cut era, you really could not tell the difference.
no, not at all. So, obviously we're all at different ages and walks of life from how it is. So I guess like the question is like what kind of obstacles did you have to deal with like coming out? I know we kind of briefly were touching over that throughout it, but I think, for me, I think like the hardest one was honestly like myself. I think, for me, the biggest obstacle, I came out to a couple of friends in college and they were super sweet and they were like, hey, what can we do and everything like that. And I remember I would get in my head so much and give myself so much worry about like every single person I was telling. And, I'd be like, oh, this person's not going to like me, or this person's not going to want me in their life anymore, or this person's not going to accept it. And I would go through like all of that like mental hurdle. And I remember just putting my body under like the worst depression and like the worst stress that I had like the first couple months of coming out, where I think for me at the start, that was like one of the hardest things. And now, I think if I deal with any obstacles, it's really just being this, you know, front facing, voice that I am, and in front of people, people see my face, people see who I look like and everything like that. Like I don't hide that behind an anonymous name on the internet and stuff like that. So the transphobia and the common comments that I will deal with, I think are like very common things that I struggle with. And I think I look back at all of those things where it was just like, it's a lot of internalized frustration, whether it was in my individual one or this person's trying to be transphobic to me is their own internalized frustration. And, it's one thing for myself to work on myself and understand myself. I think it's another thing to, for all those people out there that are just choosing to be outright negative about, my life and stuff like that, then I think the biggest thing is for me, it's understanding that when I deal with transphobia, I almost use it as like a power move for me these days, where it's like, if you are going to come out of your way to be, transphobic or a dingus to me and everything like that, then I'm like, that's because you are seeing the happiness that I am at right now. You are seeing where I feel and how I'm doing, and you want me to feel down to your level, and you don't want to try to work up to where I am. And that's what I have to try to remind myself.
Did you just say dingus?
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
Again, I kept it PG.
Love that. I think we need to bring that back.
I use dingus a lot. You can ask anybody who watches me. I love using dingus.
It's a great word.
Okay. I think that a lot of my struggles, I didn't have too much struggle coming out. Coming out to my grandparents was really hard because we had been really close before, and my grandma had always wanted me to be this like girl. Like she was always like, oh, you need to grow your hair out, you need to wear makeup, like you need to wear skirts. I hated wearing skirts and dresses, but I finally just got comfortable wearing them again because they're cool. And then when I came out, they said things like, you're always going to be a girl, like this is not the way God made you. They gave me that letter from the church, like explaining in detail why being transgender is wrong, that me and my mother burned in the fireplace later that night.
Yes.
Yeah. And it was just really hard to hear because I made like a little PowerPoint for them trying to explain to them what non-binary was, because I knew that they weren't going to get it, but I really wanted them to. And it was just really hard, like facing that rejection from people who I thought were like at least gonna try to be okay with it. But again, we're like healing our relationship. That this was in 2020, I think, but that was really hard to deal with at first. And I think that telling other people was kind of hard for me just because I didn't want to inconvenience them. Because I was like, oh yeah, no, you can still call me by my dead name. Like you don't have to change. Just like be aware of this. And I finally I finally changed my name on Zoom because this was during the pandemic Zoom school for me. And I think the other biggest thing is because I don't experience too much in-person transphobia because one, I don't get out much. And again, I have a really accepting community for my school, I think especially. I'm in a like really small school. So the thing I was saying earlier is I don't have anything to pass as, like, because you can't really pass as non-binary, and like the whole idea of passing I think is kind of like
old
stupid
school
because
rhetoric.
you just shouldn't need to pass as anything. Like that's not the goal to look like a cis person. But even if I like that disregarded, I don't have anything to pass as. Like I can't really pass as a boy or a girl. I do pass as a girl actually, but so that just leads to it led to a lot of misgendering when I was in 8th grade. Because I was kind of like trying to grow my hair out, and for people who I'd been out to for years just kept messing up, and it just felt like it like chipped away at me every time it happened because it was happening like, almost every day. I was having to correct people. I've done presentations at my school on they them pronouns and like basically begging people to like acknowledge that I'm not a girl, and it just didn't happen. And it just like chipped away at me until I started like hating myself for it. And I think that's gone a lot better this year. And I like don't love saying this, but I think it might be because I like cut my hair. So people like because people really associate like hair to gender. And I miss my long hair. Like I wish I had it again. But people have been better about this year, but I know last year that was really hard.
Yeah, I sit there and obviously not again to the they them aspect, but I know that I have a lot of friends that I spent between, like ages of like 13 to pretty much when I graduated college, and I spent a lot of time with them, and they were some of the people who took the longest to get my name right, get my pronouns right, and all of that stuff. And I remember just dealing with the frustration of them like constantly struggling and constantly not like getting it right, and it would eat away and it would chip away and it would just like like you said, it just you keep trying and keep trying, and there's only so much that we as humans can take before like it starts to like eat away at us even more. And I think we shouldn't have to be as strong as we have to be, but I feel like for how much we deal with at times, we almost are like, for me at least, when it comes to being like the face that I am, I feel like I have to just keep, putting up this like tough, exterior of not letting this kind of stuff get to you, because the last thing I want to do is show that I'm like, breaking from it, even though that is a real thing.
Someone in chat just said, "Thanks, y'all. It's good to know that we're not alone." And that I think that's really sweet because I have it pulled up on my phone. So we see you, person in chat. You are not alone.
I love it.
Yeah. What about Em or Valerie? You have either anything you want to add to that?
I'll add on to what I've had like 3 big buckets when it comes to obstacles that I've had to navigate. The first one kind of ties into something that you said, Elliot, about your hair. And it has to do with navigating people's cognitive biases. So like if people see me, they're like male. And then I open my mouth, they're like female.
Yeah.
It's just like you watch it on their face. Like people will be like, "Hey, buddy, you got a light? Hey, buddy, you got any change or something?" And if I say like yes or no, they're like, "Oh," and they get so uncomfortable. I actually had a police officer pull me over once. I was speeding, so I deserved to be pulled over. He rolls up on me, and this is before I transitioned and everything, but rolls up on me and he goes, "Sir, do you know how fast you were going?" And then I turned and I just looked at him, and he goes, "Ma'am, I'm sorry." And he got his car and left. I was like, maybe he'll come back, and he never did. But
good for you.
yeah, good for me. And then like I used to have long hair. Then when I cut it instantly, even at work, I worked at another game company. We were talking about some policy stuff. We've been discussing this policy stuff for about 5 months, and they would just talk over me. They wouldn't listen to me, and then I cut my hair short. If this wasn't intentional, I just was like sick of short hair at that point, or long hair. I was like, we'll do short hair. And I was in one of those meetings again, and we were talking, and then I started to talk up and bring up the same points I've been bringing up for the last 5 months, and they stopped. They stopped and listened to me, and I even stopped and was like looking around, trying to read their faces, like maybe someone talked to them or something. No, they genuinely were like, "Oh, what do you have to say?" And I was like, all I do is cut my hair. But navigating those cognitive biases has been quite the adventure. The other one was not letting other people's uncomfortableness impact my own comfortableness. So highly invest in yourself. You're worth it. If people are uncomfortable because you happen to be around, that's a moment in their day. It's not their entire life like it is with you. And then the other one was dealing with another coming out anxiety, right? There's a quote from Dragon Age 2, which is about that has to do with change. And it says that's what happens when you try to change things. Things change. You can't always control how. So, like, you're sitting there and you're about to come out to your family or whatnot, and you are like choked up because you know this moment when I say this thing, which is my reality, my truth, when I say this thing, I don't know how you're going to take it, but I know it's going to change and it's going to be okay. So, like, for instance, when I came out to my mom, and she did not take it very well, but over years, she's good with it. And I even talked to her about it during a lot of these fights. And I said, I've had my whole life to be comfortable with me. You've had like a couple of years or months, so it's going to take time. And it's okay to give you that time to get comfortable with it, but I'm not changing. I'm betting on me, because I have to live with myself all the time. So those are the three big buckets that I've encountered as I've in my journey.
I you know I again I'm listening, and I just it's I didn't have a lot of other trans folk when I was coming out to hear their stories for. And it's I listen to all of you that are here right now talking, and I just am like, it's almost like I didn't need that reassurance, but it's that reassuring feeling that, like, everything that I was going through is, you know, at least, like, okay, it makes sense. There's a lot of similarities and comparisons that you can draw, like, for good, but it's just that, you know, I guess it's that comfort knowing that I have that, like, sense of compatibility and that sense of, like, empathy that I can now, like, have with other trans folk. And then Valerie, sorry, I don't want to assume you're okay with Val, but if there's anything you wanted to say.
I appreciate that. I am totally okay with Val. It's funny
Okay.
because everyone does that where they'll be like, "Hey Val, oh wait, are you okay with that?" I
I
appreciate
just
it.
don't, this is a new relationship here. I don't want to
Yeah,
overstep.
yeah, yeah. Not everyone likes nicknames. Totally get it. It's just funny. Yeah, I'd be happy to talk about it. So I feel like I would want to talk about like personal obstacles. And honestly, that's because like I am tremendously lucky when it comes to like the people I'm around and like how quickly people were able to change. Like I like super, super lucky. I came out while I was at Riot. My workplace has been incredible. Like people got the name, got the pronouns super easily. I like pretty much never get misgendered here, which is, I mean, amazing. It's like huge. And my friend groups got it really quickly. It's not like I don't deal with misgendering out in the world. It happens, but like, I just feel like the people I'm lucky enough to be surrounded by people who get it and are really cool and really quick. And that just helps so much. Even my family who like, I waited so long to tell. Like I only told them last year after being like transitioning for at least 4 years by that point, right? And like a lot of my worry, it was it's just personal anxiety, but a lot of it was like there a lot of them are from the South. I know they're conservative, at least in some aspects. There was just a fear of it, and I shy away from like not controversy, but
Confrontation.
confrontation. Thank you. I shy away from confrontation. Um,
I think that's something we
yeah,
can all
and
relate to.
so totally, yes. I just hate it, and I hate it with people I know. And I took so long that like finally my grandma reached out to me, and she was like, "Hey, are you transitioning? Because like in all your photos that you put on Instagram, like you look way more femme." Like they had taken the time to get okay with it in all this time where I thought I was like fully like they had no idea. Eventually I was gonna have to tell them. It was uh, so like yeah, I took so long that they got okay with it. But like point being, I'm super fortunate. I don't think most people have that experience. And like I live in LA. I could get hormones really quickly, but like internally, I had a really long-term, like difficult struggle with it. And a lot of trans people, like, I think like once they realize this for themselves and can accept it, like I think they can move quickly. And I don't know if it was my anxiety or like my non-binary gender or whatever, but it took me a long time to get there. And I think like I put a lot of pressure on myself because there is already this sense of like what you're doing is a big change in your life. There is the potential for regret. There's the potential for it to be like super permanent or whatever. And that, of course, is the talking points that get pushed out by TERFs and conservatives and all these people who like don't want you to do it. And they want to make you like trans people look like the villains. And so, like, on top of society putting that, and like, I already gave myself enough anxiety around those things, basically, without everyone else also telling me that, whether they knew it or not, implicitly telling me that. And so it just took me a really long time to get to that place where, as my therapist described it, I was like kind of straddling the doorway for a long time, and I had to really like push through that doorway. Like the obstacles were internal, and so much of it was just a difficulty and unwillingness to sort of make the jump, um, in the sense of like coming out and socially transitioning. And I think now that I've done that, I've been able to really find myself and like be myself in a way that I just never could before. And I don't know if anyone listening relates to this at all. Just know that I understand. It took me months or even years of therapy and figuring this out for myself and a lot of identity confusion. But like, what I needed ultimately was to just try, like dive into the thing that seems most difficult and see if it works for you. Like transition by degrees can work, but it doesn't always work. And sometimes you just need to like push yourself into a space that feels really uncomfortable because that's how you grow. I don't know. That's the self discovery part. That's my obstacles.
I
No,
definitely relate to the like. Sorry.
no, you're good.
I
Go ahead.
relate to like having to push yourself part. Like I think I mentioned this earlier. Like asking people to use my name was something that gave me a lot of anxiety because I was like, I don't want to inconvenience them. I don't want them. Like I was afraid of rejection and also. But then I like finally just did it, and it made me feel so much better because I was like, people weren't like unknowingly dead naming me, and then I think it also just let me like it was like just a really helpful step of my transition. So
Yeah, when you like exist in that place for so long where people are using a name that doesn't really match who you are and are using the wrong pronouns for you, like you almost don't realize how dysphoric just in general that makes you and the atmosphere that creates. And when you finally get out of it, it's like such a relief and you just didn't even know that this thing was pressing on you. Like that's kind of what dysphoria is, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
No.
it's just just we could probably spend like 3 hours just talking about dysphoria in general.
Totally.
Yeah, like all yeah, it's just I'm just rolling through all the thoughts right now in my head. I'm just like, yep, okay. But I guess like this next question I have is gonna probably lead into the whole like riot specific end of things. But like I don't know how Elliot, just because I don't know much about you, whether you'll be able to have much like to talk about here. But like how much has gaming like influenced your expression of gender identity? Because like for me, I think that like I didn't start off very like I was very like closeted and very like what, and then because I came to Twitch and because I started to meet people, I started to be able to feel like I can actually like see myself in others and see this like person that I wanted to be. And I think less so like specific games and more this like ecosystem, regardless of it being male dominated. I feel like I was able to sit out and be like, hey, this is me, this is what I'm gonna do, this is the space that I'm trying to create. And I think that like the whole like gaming ecosystem was a place that I was able to like really discover myself more.
Yeah. I'm not like too much of like a serious gamer. Like I don't have a Twitch channel and game and stuff, but I really like Minecraft and I've played like Fall Guys and stuff like that. But I can relate to it a little bit because I feel like especially like the Minecraft community during quarantine was a really accepting of like LGBTQ plus people, and it was like made up of mainly like little baby gay and trans kids like just coming out, and then they all want to play Minecraft, and it was just like a cute little community. Like even like on Twitch, I had my like comfort streamers or whatever. I had my like Dream SMP phase, and it was cool. It was a good place to like see other LGBTQ plus people like just like in chat and like not even knowing who they are. And then I got to make like a gamer tag or whatever, and it was Elliot Enby, with 2 Y's because I'm so quirky. But it was one of the first places that I was like able to use my chosen name, like on Discord and like in Twitch and Minecraft. I'm not very creative with naming. Like I got Elliot Envy and I just stuck with it. So that's my
You got
like,
the alliteration. It's good.
yeah. So I can relate to it a little bit, but not as much as y'all do, of course, the Riot people.
I'd also just like to say, Fall Guys is very LGBTQIA because that's the game that I was pro in and never did everything like that, and that's the main thing that I've done for 2,700 hours. So you had another good game there.
I might while y'all talking about the Riot game stuff, because I probably won't have that much input. I might grab a snack really quick. So if I like get up and leave,
Go
like
right
that's
ahead.
why.
Yeah. No, that's totally fine. But yeah. So either Val or M, whichever wants to say anything, if you have anything to add there.
We're both like, yeah, okay, I'll go.
Boring, but go ahead.
We've been on video calls for 3 straight years even at this point, and like it's still so difficult to like know when to talk. It's like amazing how the pandemic did not fix that at all.
Plus, Discord has that little bit of delay as well, so sometimes you'll just talk on top of each other.
Yes, every video call does totally. Okay, so yeah, this is an interesting one for me as well because like to be clear, I said this at the beginning, but like I personally am not a game dev, right? Like I don't work on the games we put out. I'm on like a team that is like a service team for the creative people who work on all of our games and in entertainment on like Arcane and all this kind of stuff. So like I have always been tangential to games. Like I've played games for a long time, right? Like when I was younger, it tended to be your social party games. I would play Smash a lot with my friends. I was really into Guitar Hero for a while. I was like great at Guitar Hero. And I like that was my identity because I like knew those songs. But like there wasn't a whole lot of opportunity to express or explore my identity in those unless it was like picking a cute girl guitarist, which I did, but I think that as I've actually started to explore my gender is like when games started to have an influence. So like both getting into Riot, being closer to games, having a partner who's like a big gamer as well. Like it's been a really big source of excitement to number one, find the games that really speak to me and like play games that have like explicitly trans themes, trans characters. I can identify with the female characters in a certain way that's really powerful. Like a lot of the time it's visual novels or narrative adventure games, not your like typical, like it's not MMOs or anything more complex. A lot of the time it's just strong stories told in a different medium. And I love that. I just love a really good story. And I love when a story can speak to me on a personal level that I just did not get growing up. So a couple of years ago, I got the opportunity to interview AVB, who wrote the game We Know the Devil, if anyone has heard of it. It's like a visual novel with some choice-based stuff. And like playing that was a core moment of understanding. There's a trans character in that who is like discovering they're a trans person. I just didn't know that many trans people in real life when I played it. It was a big deal to me. It was just like I played it in preparation to interview AV, and then like it just spoke to me in a way I had never seen in games before. It was just a strong story where you could feel so much more invested because of this opportunity. This like, oh my God, what do you call it? Like the engagement factor with games, whatever, your interactivity, the interactivity with it just like made it so much more powerful. There's also like the Life is Strange prequel, Before the Storm. Like
And then tell me why
everyone
as
loves
well.
Tell Me Why as well. Oh my god, I
Yes.
love Tell Me Why. I actually interviewed the voice actor last year for the trans character in that game.
I love that.
Um,
I was
oh,
a
it's so
consultant
good.
on that game.
And that's amazing. That's incredible. It was so good. It was a great representation.
Yeah.
I
100%.
underrated in my opinion. Um, but yeah, like specifically the Before the Storm like prequel to Life is Strange. Like everyone loves those characters and everyone loves Chloe. Every queer person loves Chloe, obviously. But like that you just have a decision to like make Chloe and her like girlfriend Rachel kiss at one point, and I made that happen, and I like sobbed uncontrollably. Like I was not a crier for a long time, and for whatever reason, just that small little decision where like I feel like I'm making this happen. It feels close to me and powerful and nostalgic in this way I never got growing up. It's just like all of these things hit me, and I was like, oh shit. And it's such a little, it's a relatively small moment, but just basically what I'm saying is that games provide this interactive, engaging place, and like new games tell a lot of new stories that I didn't get growing up, and
Hmm.
I think the nostalgia on top of just how well written a lot of these things are just hits in ways that I never experienced. So we're all going through. I'm going through second puberty, so it's like experiencing a lot of those deep emotions all over again.
I totally feel that though, especially when it came to like those games in general. Just the Life is. I know you're Riot, but like God, the Life is Strange games, that whole series.
So good.
Amazing. Like our games are incredible. Riot's games are incredible.
Yes.
Don't get me wrong, but I love these like story rich games. Like yeah, I love Life is Strange. I love that. Yeah, all the
Hmm.
donut stuff.
I also did like the part where you were talking about how like like you've been working like tangentially with games, or you've been a tangent to games, and then you're talking about how you like finding the characters, and then you were mentioned Arcane, of course, and
Yeah.
and yeah. I did
It,
sit there in my head and I was like, yeah, okay. If you
it
know, you know.
my journey into this industry has been very weird, but now I am. Yeah, the stories we tell are very fun and very cool.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, for me, something that you sparked to my mind, Valerie, was about Rock Band actually being something that helped me with my journey and just reaffirming. Growing up, when I was in sixth grade, it was kind of like, okay, you can now take this thing called band. What instrument would you like to play? And I was like, I want to learn drums. And so I went home because you have to like talk to your parents because they have to buy or rent the equipment. So kind of important to get their blessing. And so I went and talked to my mom about it, and I was like, I want to play drums, and she was like, oh, girls don't play drums. No, you can't play drums. And I'm like, well, you want me to play a flute or something? Like she wouldn't let me play drums. So when Rock Band came around, I could play drums, and that was like the most amazing thing in the world, was to start like getting into drums and music, where I couldn't have when I was younger because of a variety of social norms at the time. But this kind of broke it. It kind of made you feel welcome to it and start doing that. So to me, that's something that helped. Otherwise, being male and being male, feeling male inside, but the world trying to tell you you're something that you're not. Games was a good escape. And then there's plenty of games where the protagonist is male, so that was an easy one to always fit into. But in contrast, I know someone on the other side of this globe of gender would not have something that was there for me when I was younger. But yeah, Rock Band was a weird one for that I think some people may not think of immediately, because it's more about a societal norm that was implied based on my region or my upbringing that I could experiment in safely and live something that I couldn't have when I was younger.
I mean, they always I say that things are cliche for a reason, and it's like there's something that small can happen. Like something that's small to you is gonna be, or something that's small to somebody else can be a huge thing for you. And I
Hmm.
think that I it's while Rock Band might have seemed like such a silly way for you, it clearly has this like deep seated like connection for you. And I think that there's a lot of people that can find themselves in like things that you might not expect. And it's nice to hear those things because it allows you to get that second perspective amongst, all of the other ones that you're hearing. And
Small.
oh, sorry, you go.
I was just gonna say small tangent, but like my chosen middle name Corin is the name of a bassist in an all-girl band, Sleater Kinney. And I'm like, I just think it's insane to me, this idea of like girls don't play drums. Like, yeah,
Mhm.
no.
Like, and I told my mom, I was like, well, what about the Go-Go's? She was like, oh, they're all lesbians. Oh my gosh.
So
And I,
Oh, the old school rhetoric out there for like the societal norms is absolute, like it's so wild to look back on because I forgot to mention this before, but like how you were talking about how you have some people who will look at you and they'll be like, oh sir, and then immediately they hear the voice. And I get the adverse. I remember I worked at a Kohl's before I came back to content creation, and I remember like my hair would look like this, so they'd look at me and they'd be like, oh ma'am, and then they'd see me turn around and they'd be like, like I so like I got the adverse, but like I can totally
the
understand.
them problem.
Yeah.
It's like, cool.
Mhm.
Do you want to buy something?
Yeah. I you just want to get like I'm just here to get you out of
Yeah,
But
it's like we close in 5 minutes.
oh dude, I could go on for hours about those kind of people, but we can save that for another conversation. I did want to ask M and Val, you in particular, like one of the things I remember when we first like interact when we were first talking and got to meet each other, you were talking about how like your workspace was like so unique for yourself in terms of like how it's helped and how it's in terms of your identity and just like your confidence and everything like that. So I'd love to for you to be able to share that with others.
yeah.
You want to go
And
first? Or?
it's sure. Yeah,
Okay.
why not? Yeah,
I do
sure.
have to
Sorry.
use the bathroom, so I'm gonna let you speak. But yeah.
I might do it later. That's totally fine. Thanks, son. I am extremely fortunate. I work on a team that is almost all women, which is like a it's a rarity in tech. It's not a common thing.
Absolutely.
Beginning was talking about it earlier, but like yeah, it is a very white cis male dominated space. So there's like an immense amount to be said for I think our team's self-awareness as a result and like the empathy that we offer to each other. There's just like this is my first time working in games, but I have worked in film before and like in other industries, and like there's a certain degree of empathy that we give to each other that like all the time when we're working together and collaborating, which is all the time, that I've just never felt in any other work environment. I think there's an element of just understanding that comes from like I we all come from different backgrounds with different details technically, but there is still a level on which we can connect in a way that we simply wouldn't be able to do with a lot of our cis male counterparts. And it's just like it is so valuable and different and special. And like I almost worry I'll never find it again, but like it is a great thing to have. I think it just empowers us to make the best stuff because we all have stated this openly, feel very, very comfortable with each other to share opinions and feedback and thoughts without that element of, just like the weird dynamics, the difficult dynamics of talking over each other or, figuring out who gets the credit for what. I just think we are all very mindful in that respect. That's not to say that all women or no men do that, but it is it's just unusual. It's an unusual environment in a way that's just so positive. Yeah, I don't know. It's like hard to describe, but it's amazing, and we've all talked about how great it is. I think you could also say that just about diversity in general. Like, the question that this was initially put to was like, how does working with a diverse and inclusive team improve work life? And like,
Mm-hmm.
I think that unique perspectives just foster better ideas. And it's been really great. I think in the time I've been at Riot, which has been a period of growth, as I understand, like that philosophy has seeped in a lot more, at least in the places that I've seen. Like I'm friends with a lot of queer people across Riot. A lot of trans people work on our games. Like there are people of all backgrounds and walks of life. But yeah, we're empowered to take initiative in a lot of the things that we do at Riot. If we want to do stuff that incorporates diversity and inclusion in some meaningful way, we tend to have to be the drivers of that. And so, like, obviously, there are a lot of cases in which that results in nothing being driven, especially when you have people who don't have to like sit there and think about it every day of their lives because it impacts them in a certain way, right? And so when you have diverse teams where like in different ways, like they're the way society interacts with them is like top of mind just because like that's existence. I think that is for trans people, that's for women, that's for people of color, like that there's so many different, that's for queer people in general. Like it becomes so important to get those different aspects and those different experiences like on a team, because the way you look at your work and who's included in your work and who the audience is for your work becomes so different, so much broader, and so much better as a result. For our team, when we're doing stuff like who do we ask to be on camera for this video that's going to be seen by the whole department that we work for? Who gets to be on stage for this event? Who gets to represent their discipline and like share their knowledge back? Like we are in a very prime spot to be very mindful of like what it means to see someone up there that we identify with. Like I said before, like sometimes you just have to see yourself represented to believe that you can do something. And like that comes back to us where we can have that effect of empowering people who wouldn't necessarily feel included or empowered at this company or in tech in general. Yeah, so like there's a lot of like almost invisible stuff that happens on a team like ours, but like it's the positive just for both us and for the people that we're advocating for, that result from it being such a cool, unusually diverse team. Yeah.
I love that though. You know, I it's it's reassuring to hear all of these like positives about like, you know, a company in the tech industry, especially just because again, you know, there's the old school rhetoric, the you know, the common tendency of, you know, men dominating the tech field and cis dominating the tech field. So it's just I just sit here and I can just listen and you know, there's just like that sense of comfort hearing what you have to say.
That's good. I'm glad. It seems to be a strong initiative at Riot to like bring new people into the tech field. I think we work really closely in tandem with like groups that train women in tech and stuff like that. So like I think it's something that the whole industry wants to see in theory, but it helps when you have the people to advocate like there in the place. Yeah, I don't know what but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
For me, in player support, we have a pretty diverse group of folks, including not just gender, race, but also nationality, language, culture, and even just conducting business in various parts of the world. You learn something new about how they prefer to engage, and then you yourself get something from this as you interact with these diverse groups, right? I found that to be enlightening, and I love it because you're learning so much new stuff that's like, oh, that's how this is how we engage in Korea in business conversations. Oh, Latam prefers to speak on this level, and broach a conversation with some lightheartedness at first. And so like you get all these different varying perspectives, and it just helps you get better for that holistically. For me, it becomes about being an advocate for those different aspects of the world, those different peoples, cultures. You can help advocate for it. And I treat it from an angle of these people may not know this, so I'll share this information with them. And that helps create the more diverse place. But also in working with these teams, you can kind of connect with folks, and having that diversity kind of breaks the monotony and it becomes a bit more comfortable. at least for me, because we all are so different. We have to kind of learn about each other, and we accept that as we go. Um, and it's been comforting to do that, but also like connecting with other trans folk at work as well, because we can help advocate when pronouns go awry and people say the wrong ones. You can kind of back channel or help reinforce in the moment for that person and not make them feel like they have to own that every time it happens, right? It's like, oh, okay, just maybe this person doesn't know, quick little correction, and move forward. So that's kind of been my experience.
Do you any? This is a question for all of you. Do you find it easier almost correcting for other people's pronouns and like defending like other people over yourself? Because I just
Yeah.
yes,
Yes.
I sit
Yeah.
there and you know you were just talking about that, and I was just like, oh my god, like I struggle so much internally with like trying to correct for myself and hoping that somebody else is just gonna stand up for me. Meanwhile, like I come to bat. I'm like I'm coming ready to swing for my friends whose pronouns are getting messed up. I'm immediately like no hesitation. I'm like no, they're they them. Thank you very much.
Exactly.
Yeah, I hate that that's the case, but it is. Like, it is important and valuable as a skill to like be able to advocate for yourself. I stand by that, but I have a really tough time with it too. Yeah, it's
Hmm.
like if I get misgendered, I am probably just going to grin and bear it. But if I hear
Yep.
someone else mess up, I am immediately going to correct them.
Yeah.
It's I don't know.
It's
We
such
look
a
out for each other, and I think that's what's valuable about the
yeah.
community.
It's just you know, it's one of those things that I look back and I'm like, it's so interesting that we all like the you know the same way for that reason where we're
Yeah.
just yeah. But I guess like the next question in terms of you know with your work at Riot Games is how is it you know just how has Riot Games empowered you as a queer creator?
And we should go first on this
It seems fair and proper for me to go since I invited you to go first.
one. I keep going
It's
first too, so yeah.
for me, it's about advocating for policies. I've done this at a variety of game companies that I've worked at, also here at Riot, and advocating for certain aspects and flexibility, freedom of choice, empowering players on stuff, and trying to make it what's best for them, right? And that means also getting to know them, sitting, listening, uh, intaking all these different perspectives about ways people feel about stuff, and being mindful of that as you write some policies and um, do no harm. Also, rewriting our documentation. We have a lot of internal documentation that is gendered, and about breaking away from that. So that way we can have some non-gendered documentation, so it's easier for folks to read and anyone can fit in those. And then inviting people to challenge their own perspectives. That has been it. It can be confrontational, and I'm okay with. I'm one of the people that are kind of okay with confrontation because there's much to learn in confrontation, right? I guess it's more of a discussion, right? A conversation, and having people, well, why do you think about it this way? So kind of pull that out. They may not freely give that because they keep it here, but the moment that they can offer that, and we can all kind of look at it together, we can point some stuff out and rearrange our thoughts and philosophies on stuff, and make sure we're coming out with a better product. So that's kind of like been a fun thing to do, is having the opportunity and people being very open. Writers are very open about that. They're very willing to talk and give you time and have conversations. So that way we can do what's best for the player.
I love that, and you know what I know one of the things that I heard from you was talking about like that confrontation. I think people are too afraid of the connotation behind that word these days, and I
Mm-hmm.
feel like we need to have like their confrontation can be good, and sometimes we need that in order to you know take that next step forward and be able to you know figure out what's the best option going forward. I feel like we are too this is just goes in general. I feel like we're just like too hesitant to bring up these things that are bothering us or you know something direct, especially when it comes to like people that we already are like close with. We don't want to do anything to jeopardize that relationship, but I think that like that confrontation is such like for better or worse, it's that word that you know has that connotation, but it's such an important thing to have for us to be able to like you know work regardless of like the field that we're in.
Yeah, and important to that is setting up the pre-work to ensure people feels it's safe. It's
Hmm.
really important to let people know this is a safe space. Like we're having a conversation here. There's nothing here about your performance or your political views or anything like that that's going to be set out here and judged. This is genuinely about all of us just talking about this so we can have a discussion around it and learn from each other and discuss what's best going forward. But yeah, making it safe is critical to having that kind of openness.
The way that I describe a lot of like education tool when it comes to like gender education that I say or just like anything like queer related in general is it's important to make sure like you're not putting the person on the defensive. People want to learn and you're trying. As soon as you make them get defensive, that's when they're going to be more hesitant to that change. You have to try to come from this ability to keep it like rationalized and make them feel like their ignorance isn't the reason why they're messing up, and more like, hey, this is a way to like take that next step forward. And I've learned a lot when it comes to like within like family and stuff like that, trying to like word things carefully so that they don't feel like they were stupid or anything along those lines because they didn't get it. And so yeah, I think there's a lot of back and forth here that we could have on this topic.
I think adding on to that, another thing, like especially when talking about gender and also queer stuff in general, with education is not making people feel like it's like us against them.
Yes.
Like I remember a few days ago, and I was having my like health class, and with Planned Parenthood, and it was actually like really cool. We talked about sexuality and gender and stuff, which I know is not a lot of people's experience with health class. But we were talking about gender and like how it's on the spectrum and stuff. And it's one of the things the like instructor pointed out is like everyone's somewhere on the gender spectrum. Like it's not something only transgender people worry about. And like same with sexuality, everyone's like on the sexuality spectrum. It's not just something. It's like not just something queer people have to worry about. And so allowing people to put themselves like somewhere on the spectrum, like even if it's like I am a cisgender female, like that's like part of the gender spectrum. Like that's fine, that's cool. And so it's not just us against them.
It's kind of that thing of like, toxic masculinity is bad for men too, right? It's like, or the patriarchy is bad for men too, where it's like there are gender expectations put on us as a result of like the entrenched gender norms that exist in our society that are extremely difficult to get out of. And I mean, a lot of this stuff applies to trans people too, and the way that we perceive ourselves, and like the ability to get out of that box that like is pushed into your head from literally when you're born. I agreed, it's not an us versus them, but it's hard because everyone wants to other us, everyone wants to make the trans community seem like we are a separate entity from them. Yeah, a lot, we have to do so much work to fight.
Yeah, I that's such a like that resonates. Hearing that, where it's like they pretty much try to have us be separated. There's all like the turfs where there's the word literal exclusion in it. Like there's such a the common almost practice at this point of trying to exclude trans individuals from being just accepted. I and just being themselves. I remember I had this feeling when I first came out where I didn't want to label myself as trans because I just wanted people to be, accepting of me. I just wanted people to be like, yeah, this is Chloe, this is who I am. And, I didn't want that. Eventually, I started to want to wear that trans title with like a sense of pride. And I started, but like at the start, it was that I didn't want people to, separate myself from anybody else. I just wanted people to, know me for me. And if they learned that I was trans, then, so be it. And I think that both sides of how I felt at the time were valid at that point, and they were each at different sides. But, again, it's that whole idea of I didn't want people to have any preconceived notions or try to, exclude me in any way just for who I was.
Yeah, I've like along the lines of that. I've seen like ridiculous like survey things, like when it's like ask your gender or whatever. Um, there'll be like male, female, and then transgender as an option, and I think that that's like really funny, an example of how people like often try to other us or alienate
Yeah.
us. And along the lines of like identifying yourself as trans, this is kind of like in the opposite direction for me. But like I'm non-binary, but a lot of like people in the queer community don't acknowledge I'm also transgender. Like the thing with being non-binary is that it's a like really big spectrum. Like gender queer, gender fluid, like all of that stuff is all like somewhere along the lines of non-binary. Um, and some non-binary people choose to identify as trans, like I do, because I see trans as like just being something else than what you were assigned at birth, like according to your gender. And I like went through my transitioning process, and it's totally valid if you like don't decide to use the label as trans, or if you do, like you're still like non-binary either way. But I feel like some people don't really understand that you can be trans as well as being non-binary. Like we're not cis. Like that doesn't make sense at all. I just feel like people need to understand that. And it's like because I've been told that by like people in like the queer community, and it just confused me. It's like, are you trying to invalidate my trans identity because I'm not a trans binary person? Like on the like trans man or trans woman, like that's confusing. But yeah.
No, I think that was
I
still an important voice to share.
Yeah.
totally, totally. Like I continue to believe that like when people shut out like the folks in the larger trans umbrella, it is a matter of wanting to appeal to like a cis, like broadly normative audience that is, it is the sense of there is safety in the majority. And honestly, that is just not what our community can or should be about, because we will never achieve like trans liberation, right? Like shutting out parts of the trans umbrella is just never going to be it's frustrating. Yeah, sorry. That's like a very big topic, but I think that as trans people, we are unique, and we are widening the bounds of like what is possible within identity, and we should embrace that absolutely, because that is really the only way forward. Um,
Yeah, to me, the trans community is not a monolith. Even this own
yeah.
stream is so diverse. And to me, this is for me, trans for me is transcending the common philosophy of gender. It's like beyond what the common binary, which two buckets are you in, and just so much more than that.
Transcend.
All those trans terms, I swear. Whenever I'm trying to like tell a story and I use like a trans with like the pretext of a word, I just sit there and I'm like, I'm not trying to make a pun. It's just, trans is such a common term for a prefix.
I'm reminded of the I was gonna say I'm reminded of the like 100 million Reddit posts that I've seen where it's like trans union, or like on a truck where it's like some transport thing and they use trans in their name, and so everyone's like, "Oh, the truck's trans." It's the
I look for
same
the
joke every
flag.
time, but it's so funny.
It's our humor. We're allowed this.
We're
Yeah.
allowed this. Bad fun.
I think I've also had like moments where like someone was like binder, like talking about like a school binder, like a book, and I'll be like, "Oh my god, they're trans!" Like,
Yeah.
it just because it's I think it's because it's something that we have to deal with like on the daily, and it's just kind of
Mhm.
like at the front of our minds all the time. So it's at least some funny moments.
I
That
also,
makes so much sense.
for me,
Go
I
ahead.
try to obviously be entertaining while also trying to, use my voice. I think there's a lot of power in having these jokes be like coming from us, and it
Yeah.
allows even like, not that you need this with like your friends, but I make a lot of trans related, surgical related jokes around my
Mhm.
friends, and they all love it because they know that it's funny, but it's also, for me, it's I'm putting the power and like, like I understand that like these are the goals that I want to make, and that these are things that I want to get to and stuff like that, but for me it's also like if I can make the joke at it and I allow, like it allows my humor, but also me to be like, hey, you don't have to be awkward about this because like I'm the one that's making the joke in the first place.
Yeah.
Totally feel the same way. I love to like seeing like if I go on Twitter or whatever, I love looking at like trans stand-ups or like trans comedians in general because I think the common thing that comes up is there are obviously a lot of cis people who currently want to joke and make the same old jokes about trans people, right? And what's so great is that like being trans is funny at its core, but like the people making these jokes do not understand what makes it funny. Like they're not good jokes, they're not insightful, they're not interesting. Whereas like trans people can joke about themselves and it's hilarious. But I don't know, you have to like actually understand the experience. You have to like empathize on a level in order to like make something funny out of it, if that makes sense.
I agree.
Get stuck on the same stuff.
Like the cis people in their attack helicopter jokes. Like, oh,
It's
like
the
I
same
identify as a
thing.
they're like, you're not funny. It's not funny.
It wasn't funny 10
been
years
around for
ago when
15
everyone started
years.
it. Like
Like, at least try a little bit if you're trying to offend us. Like, Lord.
it's exactly what I tell the people. Like I know I shouldn't be like that, but sometimes I'm like, if you're gonna try to be like offensive, at least be creative with it. Like, you're using the same things over and over again at this point, and like nobody's gonna think it's funny. Nobody's gonna want to see it because we're tired of it.
Totally.
Yeah.
Agreed.
It's boring.
When
it means nothing.
It literally makes
like-
makes us feel nothing toward it. Like
Yeah, it's like, what's wrong with you that you feel compelled to do this? Like, my day is not ruined. I don't understand why you're doing this.
Like, go do something with your
Yeah.
life. Go touch some grass.
That's correct.
see, now that's still a joke that I'm happy exists still. Just keep telling people to touch grass and we're I'm sorry, we definitely tangented. We got a little bit on a tangent there. I don't even remember at this point. Val, did you get to talk about your stuff? I want to make sure that you get to speak too.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I guess not. Yeah, sure. I can talk about how Riot has empowered me as a queer creator.
I got to make sure I empower you and you use your voice.
Thank you. It's valuable. Not like I haven't told you that already. Okay. I'm not exactly a creator in the sense that, like, again, I'm not like a game dev, right? But like, yeah, again, like we have trans people working on all our games. I do think that's important to acknowledge it, even if like I'm not the representative of that. I still think it's wonderful working close to games, regardless. Speaking to like my own work, I think I felt really empowered through working through our like employee resource groups, including like the Rainbow Rioters who helped set this up. Like my role currently, like my actual job is a project manager, basically on like at its core, and like I've worked in the employee resource groups before. What's wonderful is like we are handed this responsibility, like an empowerment, this space where you can really advocate for yourselves and for your community the way you want to. I think Riot is really good about that, about sort of handing you the reins, which is cool. I have always felt listened to in those types of spaces. I was on the leadership group for the past couple of years and had the potential to make a lot of impact there, which was great. I think like we work at a company that requires a lot of work, like a lot of hard work. There's a lot going on. It can be a real energy drag to try to do something outside of your work, but like it is still very empowering when you have the potential to push for projects that you think are just going to be amazing. Like stuff I think we've been able to do that's been really cool is we've been able to like run ballroom events internally and like use that to teach people who had no idea about like queer ballroom culture, which was really cool. I mean, that's special. It feels like you're making an impact, and it's a thing that honestly most workplaces probably would never want to dive into at all. And we got to dive in really deep. And I've gotten the opportunity to spearhead Pride events as well. So like I have been able to take all of that knowledge and use it to run internal events for like my main job for like this really big group of people. And now I have all this experience because I worked on the employee resource groups that I can like utilize towards advancing my own career. Like that's empowering, that's powerful because I had the opportunity to step in and do it myself. So yeah, I think that's like the biggest place where Riot has really empowered me. I do want to call out that like, we like to talk about companies as individuals in a sense. Like Riot is a corporation. It's not a monolith. It is a group of thousands of people who, yes, are aligned on certain values, but like ultimately, Riot is imperfect because it is a group of people who are imperfect. But I do think that like the policies that we've set up and the ways in which we've grown over the last several years have really opened up this space where like I don't know, you can make your own, you can advocate for yourself, I think, in ways that weren't always possible. It's been slow progress, and I know like the trans community here has had to fight for certain things in terms of benefits and stuff, but like I do feel like we have a voice, and that means a lot, and it makes me feel better about working here. So yeah.
I think sitting there and it circles back to stuff we were talking about at the start, where like it's progress, it's slow, but you're still able to see it, and I think that there's a
Yeah.
lot of hope that comes with that kind of thing, and that's something we can all relate to. It's one of those things where I I guess this might seem like a weird like analogy here, but when I started first coming out, I was sitting there and I would see how all these endpoints that I want to get to, and sometimes it was hard to feel like I was making any sort of progress. But then you start to make like little goals, or you sit there a little bit slow, or you like you see those little spots that you were able to get, and that provides the hope because you've seen those like stepping stones that you've been able to place and get in there, which has allowed you to take these bigger steps to move forward. And I think that I can kind of see a little bit of that in what you're saying right there.
Yeah. I think that is part of the reason advocacy is exhausting, because that progress can be really slow, and you can know what's best for you or for your community and what should be in place, and you still have to like fight for those things sometimes because other people are in charge of it. But I do think that's what's valuable about like opening up the space where like you're empowered to do things for your community. That's what's helpful about events like these, where it's like yes, I'm a trans person at Riot. Like we are trans people in the industry, or like who have visibility, who have a face, and like that's um, it's just meaningful.
I
Hopes.
agree.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's you can sit here and regardless of how big it is, there's a smile on all of our faces just listening to this conversation, and I think that it just it shows I always find joy in just like hearing from like other trans folk, just because it's being able to hear these like directions that they've been able to get to, or things that's going on with them that are just exciting, and it's it just shows that I think specifically for just Riot in general, the amount of progress that they've had. I remember again, because I've been playing League of Legends since season 1, and at this point that's a long time for that game. And I remember early on when it was like in like the Forbes top 10 best companies to like work for, and so I remember thinking just all of that, and then now I hear all your stories internally, and I think that that's just it provides hope for not only our next generation of trans folk, but just also like just being queer in general in these industries. I think is it's nice to see that there's more front facing personality behind it, and we're able to all be able to not feel like we can't be ourselves.
I have two things.
Yeah.
First of all, Valerie, like the wall behind you looks like my floor, and it's really messing me up, and I love it so much. Like it looks like just like one of the wooden stained floors.
I think it's like a pirate ship vibe, or like this is Island Navigator from Legends of Runeterra, and I honestly don't know what the lore behind her is, but I think they're trying to go for like Bilgewater kind of decks. I don't know. It's cool.
Yeah.
Love the conference.
I was definitely trying to figure out what the painting was behind you.
Yeah. That's really cool. Cool.
It's like, are you laying down?
Yeah, that's what
Just chilling on the floor, on the hardwood floor with the painting.
honestly, you know, sometimes you just messing around, rearranging the room, the office. You know, I'm sure we've all done that.
Yeah. And the other thing was, I feel like I probably should have done research on this, like, before I came on a Twitch stream. But what are, like, some of the games at Riot? Because, like, I've heard of it, and I've heard of, what do you say, League of Legends, but I'm just curious, like, what else?
Yeah.
Valorant, first-person shooter.
Oh my god! Oh, that's
Yeah.
cool.
So yeah, that was our third game. Our second game was Legends of Runeterra card. It's a free-to-play card game. Yeah, which is the arts from there. Wild Rift, which is kind of League on mobile, a little bit different, but yeah. And we also have those Forge titles.
Oh yeah, the
Ruin King.
Convergence, which was the Echo one, Ruin King, yeah.
Yeah, so those are our games.
And then the in development fighting one that is, you know.
Project L.
Yes,
Yeah.
Project L, yeah. Also Arcane, that's like a show on
Yes!
Netflix.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
League characters. Yeah. I know, it's great. I love it too. That was like my first introduction, honestly, to some of the lore in the game, and yeah.
My best friend
I
does
have-
not play League, but she watched Arcane, and I
Yeah.
think it just goes to show how like widely, you know, like well written that was. That if you were able to separate whatever preconceived notions you had toward League of Legends, because I know some people have that, and they, you know, so on. But I think if you can separate that and just enjoy it for like the piece of art that it was and like the storytelling that it was, you know, you don't need to like League to watch that. You don't need to know anything about it to like that, and it shows right there.
Season
Yeah.
2.
I love Arcane. Oh god, it's been forever since I watched it. Is like Vi or V, or like the one with the like red hair,
Yeah.
and then
Vi,
the other one, are they
Caitlyn?
dating?
Oh, and Caitlyn?
Are they together? Are they gay?
It's certainly implied, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's so many,
I
like,
can't confirm anything. I have nothing to confirm. I know nothing.
there's so many like TikTok edits, and like I've seen like people do like cosplays of them. And okay, anyways, I played Valorant. Was one of the like first games I played besides Minecraft, and this is kind of like, I don't know if I like should say this, but the first time I joined the voice chat, that was the first time I've been called a slur, because I joined it and the people in there just started calling me out and calling me the F slur. I think I called it to like 7 times before I just decided to leave. And it was all these like 12-year-old boys. And at the time it was like off-putting to me because I had never experienced that before. And it was kind of sad because I really had liked playing Valorant, but like I kind of maybe not want to play anymore, being really homophobic just because I had my cool gamer tag Elliot NB. But that's actually really funny. Okay, that's it.
Do you know when that happened? Do you recall when that
God.
was?
Definitely it was during
During
quarantine.
quarantine?
So it's either early 2021 or late 2020. Probably early
So,
2021.
there's been a lot of movement. There's been a lot of updates to help make that safer.
Yeah, I haven't
coming.
played it since, so I should probably check that again. But
I do know a lot of queer folk that are big Valorant fans, so I think,
Yeah.
and I in terms of like, from what I've been able to gather, I have a lot of, you know, women that I'm friends with that are, you know, in like the challenge, the Valorant challenge or VCT or whatever. I don't know the exact acronym there, but it's pretty much like the women's competitive side of Valorant, and I know there's like a very strong female or NB side in terms of just like player base there. So while obviously I don't work for Riot, but I will say I've heard a lot of, you know, positives in that game in general in terms of the player base as a whole.
Yeah, and keep talking to us because we're listening. Like, if you see something, like, talk to us because we want to make that better, welcoming, and safe. And there are advocates like us on the inside helping to make this and drive that change. And we find those people in these teams, and they want that type of feedback. So we do. We are listening. So just want to share that. So it's definitely something that we do care about.
I think I would have
Thanks
like
for-
freaked out if I knew that I was doing this now, like when I was playing Valorant. I don't know. It's actually really, and I didn't even think about that because I didn't. I like as I said earlier when we were just on Discord and on stream, I totally forgot this was happening, and I would have done research and like been like, what is Riot Games again? What are these people doing? But I would have flipped out if I knew that this was happening like a year ago.
Also, shout out to our music team. If you haven't heard of Riot Music, highly recommend that you go to YouTube and look up, or just any type of web search, KDA, Riot Music. There's tons of great music that come from that team, and like it's just stellar.
I love the music. I said that, like I look forward to any time that there's music, and I remember like it's funny. It circles back to Arcane. The first like real song that I remember from Riot Music that I was like, oh, I am like bopping. It was when Vi first came out, and you had I think it was Nikki Taylor was singing the song for it, and just here comes Vi, and I was just like, I listened to I was in high school listening to that song on like repeat in like the library, being like, yeah, I don't care, I'm listening to League of Legends music, so what?
League music is, I mean, Riot's music team is amazing. Like, just want to plus one that really big. Might just personally call out like KDA. Kim Petras was on one of the songs. I think she's Eve, right? And she does. I think it's Villain. Yeah, the song Villain. Oh my god, it's so good. Had that on repeat for ages. That, and we just put out like the World song with Lil Nas X. And,
yes.
like, oh my god, so good.
Yeah, that
incredible.
was good.
I love that song personally.
I still am listening to Star Walking.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Went and saw Lil Nas X in concert, and he like played it as his encore song, and I was like, it's amazing.
Oh, I love that.
I think it's from like the intro or whatever of the Arcane show, like Enemy by like Imagine Dragons has been stuck in my head. It's just like Riot music, but like it's in the category, and it's been stuck in my head so much.
I think that was like I think Imagine Dragons was like the first one where it really like hit the spotlight for a lot of people, where there was like, oh, Riot music, like they got Imagine Dragons, this is like big, and like I think that's when like people really started to take like the music side of what you all were doing seriously. Yeah,
I love that. I love that. That's what got them.
Now,
we had Imagine Dragons for World Song.
Also twice if you're into K-pop.
Yes,
I love Twice.
No, yeah,
they're great.
I remember how exciting that was. Yeah,
once.
So we don't have much more time left, but I did want to make sure I specifically ask Elliot one question before I allow you, Val, and Em to talk about the internship. But Elliot, I just wanted to ask, like, what kind of advice do you have for LGBTQIA plus and trans youth in general? As you've been someone who has been so. You give off this mature age over than where you're at, and I think that you have a lot of wise words to be able to share with people.
Thank you. Okay. Let me think. It's not like I'm like inspire the youth generation or whatever. I think one of my biggest pieces of advice is that there's no one right or wrong way to be transgender or queer or non-binary. Like you don't have to look a certain way, you don't have to sound a certain way, you don't have to dress a certain way. Like whatever way makes you feel the best like about yourself is the best way for you. Like I struggled with like my feminine side a lot just because of my experiences with getting misgendered if I even so much as put on mascara. But once I like kind of tried to move past that, I just felt a lot more comfortable with myself. And so that's one. Another one is not obviously, but just keep going. Like there's a lot of hard things about being trans and being like a young person, and it's really scary, like with all the new legislation, and obviously dysphoria sucks, but there's also really beautiful parts of being trans, like getting to do stuff like this, like those moments like when I like first tried on my chest binder and I was like crying the whole night. I was like, oh my god, I have a chest binder. So just keep going and like be patient and kind with yourself because it is hard, but as the company says, it gets better.
Yeah, I
Love
always,
it.
I keep saying, I'm like, hey, I know it's in the name, but it is true. It does get better, and I think
Yeah.
all of us here can relate to that in our experiences.
Yeah.
And then lastly, before we wrap up here, I know Riot has some internship opportunities that I would, I think it's important to share because again, we've had this lovely interaction and Riot's been so gracious enough to be here. So I wanted you to be able to at least talk about some internships for people who are listening.
And do you have any thoughts on that? Like we have the FAQs on the internship stuff, so I could read some stuff off about that.
Yeah, like we do have this. If you can check the FAQs, I'll prime the pump for you if that works. Yes, we have this program. It's something that we do on the regular. So if you've missed out once, don't worry, you got another chance. You can do it again. Definitely something we value. It's a fresh new perspective that you bring in, so make sure that you apply through our proper channels to do so. um, uh, and bring yourself, bring your authentic self when you come. That's something that rioters value. It's something we kind of hold also just as a point of pride in being a rioter. I mean, it's in the name, and so it's something that you can feel like bring yourself and bring that perspective because it's going to make everybody else better. It's not just about giving you experience and like helping you like learn how the gaming industry works, the way Riot does things in certain flavors, and there's more to the experience than just making the games. There are other opportunities. There's like the service itself, right? Like it's got to run. The game has to run. It's not just about building the assets, designing the game. There's so much more around games than just making it itself. So, yeah, like if you're sitting here and going, oh, I'm not really a code, I don't really do code, not really an engineer, that's okay. Or you're like, oh, I'm not really an artist, or, maybe I only like doing a certain type of art. That's okay. There's no wrong path in life. Like everything you take that you experience is just going to make the ultimate experience that is you better. And uh, actually, I'll pause with that and see if you have anything that you'd like to add, Valerie.
Sure. Yeah, I think that is a really good. Yeah. Like I just want to say that like, and this applies to anyone who is interested in getting into gaming. Like as I said, I had a weird path to getting here personally, and I think I've had to like grow in this role a lot and learn a lot. Like I think so much of working in creative industries like this, like part of the job is that growth, is that learning. I would encourage you, even if you feel like you're not, especially if you're like a queer person or a person of color or a person who like doesn't necessarily feel represented there, like you can be and you are. You it is worth pushing yourself to try to get into these roles that like seem difficult or scary or like feel like they're not related to like what you do or what your skills are. Like there are so many people here at Riot across the company in so many different like disparate positions who like use their know-how to make the games happen in some way or form. I don't work directly on the games, but my team is so helpful to the people who are here, helping them grow on their crafts, helping them be better, making the games better as a result. So I just want to say that if you feel like this doesn't apply to you, it could, especially if you're excited about games. Um, I want to read off a couple of the FAQs just in case people are listening and want to know. I believe you can find summer internship FAQs on the Riot website. So you can like look up Riot Games summer internship FAQs and like find it. But for eligibility requirements, so if you are a student who is currently enrolled in college, university, or non-degree courses, so individual courses online, certificate programs from an accredited program, you are able to apply for this internship. And there are roles available in disciplines that include software engineering, game design, quality assurance, production, art, VFX, UX design, data science, analytics, animation, business strategy, sound design, product management, and more. There are a lot. The point is, it is very widespread in a very like wide variety of fields, and you could fit into one of those. So I just want to call that out, and it does specifically say on there here, like, do you need to be good at video games to be considered? And the answer is no, not at all. Experience with games can help. Excitement about games can help, but it doesn't mean you have to be good or anything like that. Like we want you to be passionate about creating awesome experiences for players. That is drilled into us as rioters. Like, we are here for the players who play our games, and we want to make the experience better for them. So that is the main value that you should have going in.
Yeah, I'm terrible at League. I'm not a League
Oh
player.
God, me too.
But I am an FPS player. A lot of Halo, a lot of Left 4 Dead. And so like I have a big passion in that space. So Valorant was a good place for me to kind of like come in with, and I like help with that too. Even though I'm in player support, you may be thinking, oh, support tickets. It's like actually I do product aspect of it, and so I actually help these game teams when it comes to whether we're about to ship or there's a new feature, and we're preparing what the player experience is, because like that's a core value, and so we look at that and bring all the different perspectives, so that way we can understand what that experience will look like based on the way that a product is or feature is developed. And so I bring the perspective of like, oh, well, this may cause this problem, or this could cause that problem, or could we potentially do this, because then it would support these people in this other region. So that there's just like Valerie said, there's a lot of different aspects to it. So just as it is with gender, don't put yourself in a box, like, unless you want to be there. But there's so many more.
Yeah.
Highly encourage applications. Yeah.
You know, I wish that.
And
there you go.
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
I was just the due date for the applications is Friday, January 6th, 2023. I wanted to call that out too. That's all.
Yeah, no, that you're totally fine.
Okay,
I was just gonna say that I wish that I had like been more put more effort when I was in college to find like internships like this, because I feel like I probably would have really liked to be able to have done something along this. And you know, I'm happy to hear that all of these, you know, programs and internships are out there right now. Also, I can teach you League, you teach me Valorant, because I am the most impatient shooter when it comes to that game, so it works out.
You got to learn about that reticle bloom. Let it rest.
No, I played the old school shooters back when there was no such thing as bloom or anything like that.
Right.
Yeah, so but I seriously, I just want to say again, a huge thank you to each of you here. Please go give yourself like a moment to talk, say something about yourselves again before we wrap up here, because I want you all to get your, you know, your voice again. Anybody?
I will say thank you so much for organizing the stream. You did an amazing job. This was all honestly like really fun talk. So I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for this, and for giving me the space. I don't know what to say about myself other than I'm happy to be here. I think my Twitter handle might be up on the stream. Is that accurate?
I think you gave your name. We only have your first name there.
Okay, cool. Okay, I was gonna say, I thought I gave my Twitter handle, and I was like, I'm not sure that's gonna be the best place to find me anymore. I don't know if I have any like socials to promote or anything, but that's totally okay. I'm Valerie, right?
It's also the content creator thing where you're like, hey, shout yourself out. So it's just, you know, out of the habit.
Yes, totally. Find me on LinkedIn, whatever. Yeah.
Too. LinkedIn's a good place to network and get connected. So I also recommend that. For myself, I am on Instagram, Ambitious Icarus. Remember, don't fly too high or don't fly too low. So always keep that ambition. But
I love that.
Yeah. Most of that is going to be my art, because I actually started in games as artist, and now I'm in product. And I had a crisis. I have always seen myself as an artist, and I had my producer ask me one day. She was like, "What would you do if you?" Because I had this new job as a creative director, and she goes, "Could you do this for the rest of your life if you knew you couldn't draw?" And I was like, "Yes." And it was like, I had my identity wrapped around being an artist, and I had like a bit of a crisis. But it's all about. Then I realized, why do I like art? Because I like telling stories. and product does that as well. So it made me do a little bit of a deeper dig and dive on myself. But yeah. So if you want to see my art, it's over there. If you like Lore Olympus, you'll see a lot of Lore Olympus fan art over there. But yeah.
I love that. And
Um,
lastly,
yeah. I don't know. I don't have any socials to promote, but I'd just like to promote It Gets Better. It's a really great educational website for storytelling, and especially for any LGBTQ plus youth looking for representation or resources. They have a really good resource page. And if you want to know more about me, you can look at the Youth Voices page. I think they have like my bio there or whatever. So, and yeah, also thank you for inviting me. This has been really cool to meet all of y'all.
I've had
Think
an
that-
absolute delight hanging out with you all and having this conversation. I'm sure we could have kept going about this kind of stuff,
Yeah.
but I know we're all busy and for all of our things. So again, thank you everyone. My name was Beginning. Bay or Chloe, pronounce she her. I stream on Twitch and I'm an ambassador for It Gets Better. So thank you everybody for hanging out today. I really do appreciate it. For Sulky who's in the chat, if you want to pick It Gets Better ambassador, if you think we should raid out, or we can just end it as is. But by all means, please go again. Sign up for the internship. Go read about Elliot's bio. Just make sure you listen to the trans voices that we have here because, again, this is a very emotional time for us all, but it's a very powerful time. And, as each year goes by, we have more and more voice to share. So thank you so much. And with that, we'll see you next time. Take